I'd like to call the Committee of the Whole for the Village of Cary for Tuesday, March 3rd, 2020 to order with roll call, please.
Weinhammer.
Here.
McAlpine.
Here.
Cavelli.
Here.
And Collier.
Here. And I'm here too. Would you join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, please? Welcome. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We'll now move to the open forum public comment section. Is there anybody who would like to address the Committee of the Whole? I think everybody here is here regarding this. So we'll go ahead and close open forum at 6:47. Thank you. Eric, hit you off with a discussion regarding the police station and village hall schematic design.
Thank you, Mayor. We are excited to have FGM, our architect, and Frederick Quinn Corporation, our construction manager, here to help us present the results of the schematic design phase of our police station village hall project. So as you probably heard, last Thursday we had an open house at which time the design team presented the schematic design, floor plan, and most importantly, the latest versions of the exterior elevations to the public. We got a lot of great feedback from not only the public, but from the village board and staff. And then this evening, FGM will present the kind of the compilation of all the different aspects of schematic design, which is the first of the two halves of the design process. Once we move past this process, we would then move to design development, which time as an engineer, the fun part for me, the nitty-gritty details of the actual building design and construction are determined. That sends us then into the preparation of construction documents. So I will turn it over to the FGM and the design team. They'll give the summary, and then at the conclusion of that, we would like the committee's feedback, and we are looking for hopefully consensus to move on to the next phase of the design process and some direction on which of the material pallets to utilize on the exterior. I'll turn it over to Brian.
And that before Brian gets into it, I just want to say, and that's what the focus is of get to some consensus here on the exterior or the elevations. We've got the interior pretty much set, but we need some direction to finalize that as we proceed with FGM and FQC.
Thank you. All right, thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Village Board. Again, my name is Brian Mead, and it's great to give the update for schematic design. I'm going to go through these slides pretty quickly and focus really on the end of the presentation, which is the exterior design. The site plan, by now, you're probably all familiar with the schematic design site plan, which is two-story building. The public parking is on the north, staff parking on the south. Through design development, we'll talk about what different alternates we may look at for that, such as fencing, covered parking, so on and so forth. And then the schematic design.
Question before you go to the next one.
Yes.
This layout that you have right here, where there's only one way in and one way out for the police department area, is that how it's going to stay, or is that something that we can discuss as far as on the eastern portion, if there's a way out where they can actually go on an industrial drive as well?
We are still working, that's a good question, because we are still working at a staff level of just where the ingress and egress will be. So this is still fluid.
Right, thank you. And then the schematic level floor plans. This is the upper level, main level with the public entry off the north. Both floors stack very efficiently and economically right now, so they're both just under 11,000 square feet. In the bottom left, if you were at the open house as well, you saw we're starting to explore some of the different seating layouts for the council chambers. The lower level, again, is embedded into the hillside, so the staff entry is on the south. Again, the color coding is primarily police. The orange is the shared spaces, and then the yellow is the limited public access at the northeast corner. And then just briefly, we started about 3 weeks ago with the exterior design process. So we met with the key stakeholders a little over 2 weeks ago, And like we do with all design projects, we kind of have a visioning session where we looked at the regional municipal building examples around the area and took a poll, got great feedback, what kind of materials, styles different stakeholders liked. Then we also looked closer right here in Cary, at your current building here, other buildings and icons and signage and materials around town. Primarily the new train station. There was a lot of great feedback over the last 2 weeks with the forms, the materials, the brick, the ashlar pattern stone on the base. All of that good feedback led then into our massing studies. 2 weeks ago, we also presented some of these context photos. So looking at the site, looking at the hill, looking at the context of the Goddard School just to the north. It's important to understand the approach from all sides for the civic building. As you all know, with the park to the south, it is a building seen by all 4 sides. So it's going to be very important to make sure that it looks good from all 4 sides. The different angles from the west and from the southwest. And then finally, as you've all seen in the packets probably by now, we presented, this is obviously an axonometric view from the northwest. Again, the design development phase, which we're just starting, there's going to be a lot of refinement in terms of the details. How is the mechanical enclosure screened so it's not visible from the public? How does the council chambers get natural light from above? All of these are really going to be exciting to explore further. But you can see from this bird's eye view, it's a very economical building with a parapet construction membrane roof with very little areas that pop up. So council chambers, and then the front of the building is where we're really putting the nice civic presence with the pop-up of the entry. So the open house last week, we had 3 different material palettes. And so the first series of slides are the exact slides you saw at the open house with the exact brick colors, the stone, all of those materials. And then with all the great feedback since last Thursday, we basically have created kind of a hybrid variation of, we kind of have 3 variations, and they all kind of stem from palette number 2, which was kind of the perceived favorite. But before we get to the variations, I just wanted to go back through the original palettes from last Thursday. So palette 1, and again, the forms are all the same, it's really just the material differences. Palette 1 had the red brick blend that's very similar to the train station on the front, and then it had more of a formal limestone looking base water table. And again, the exact materials yet to be determined in design development, but it had a little bit more of that traditional formal language, whether it was a cast looking limestone. In the back was introduced a little bit darker brick on the base, and that darker brick is similar to what was in the train station. And then the elevations, the pure elevations for palette 1. Palette 2 then had the same brick blend on the top, the red brick, but then the base was more of an ashlar stone, so a little bit more of that natural rustic stone similar to the train station. And a lot of these details, as you all know, are interchangeable. So on this one, we thought, well, let's look at this public entry and staff entry, and instead of doing lighter piers that might be limestone or masonry, we thought we'd look at some metal panel. So some metal panel piers, maybe there's infill panels at the staff entry. And then, the underside of the roofs is something I didn't mention in palette 1, but the attractive wood-looking soffits that are on the train station, which are very handsome and attractive. On all the schemes, we thought we would show that for the public entry and any of the entry canopies and soffits of this building.
And does everyone know when Brian's talking about the piers, the vertical elements? Just want to make sure we're all on the same page.
Yes, sorry, I can point to some of these. So the vertical piers and the piers in the back. And then you can barely see it at this angle, but in between the 4 bays, there's all sorts of options with whether it's metal panel, brick, stone for those. And then finally, palette 3, which was presented at the open house, same forms, but for this one, we chose some different, this was almost an all brick scenario. Even though it was a darker brown brick from the train station, it was brick on the top, and then it was sort of this brick with horizontal details and reveals on the bottom. And then instead of the shed roof, we just explored, just to have a third idea, these wood-looking portals. So the staff entry, the public entry, and even some corners like this, the police break room and the shared village conference room had these little portal shade elements. So like I said, those were the 3 that were presented. And again, there was a lot of great feedback, primarily for option 2. Option 1 had good feedback. there was a lot of requests to kind of mix and match some different ideas. So the final slides you're going to see is trying to take a lot of that good feedback. And this is what we're really going to want your feedback on for the revisions. So where we had palette 1, 2, and 3, the 3 variations we have tonight is basically 2A and 2B, so they stem from palette 2, and then we have a 1A, which is really very similar, but it stems from palette 1. So 2A, the front of the building looks very much the same. The only things we've done per some of the requests is we added a shading canopy over the Sellyport. There was some feedback to have at least a 3-foot extension if it's raining, if it's bad weather, as the vehicles are coming in and out, they have some sort of protection there. So we added that on all the options you'll see today. There was also feedback, and in design development, we'll be doing more study about the solar heat gain that will come through depending on the time of day on the west and the south. So on all the schemes you're going to see today, the south and west elevations all have a series of sunshades that are integrated with the window systems. And then the other thing we showed in 2A, which wasn't in 2, is there were some comments at the open house, and even some of the staff feedback before that, that in the previous option 2, maybe it was a little bit too plain. And what I mean by that is even though we had a strong band here at the 12-foot datum, from here up where it was red brick, except for the punched openings, there wasn't a lot of extra banding or horizontal. So what you're seeing in 2A and 2B is just some subtle attention to having reveals in the brick. So the brick may be recessed or projected, creates a nice shadow line, it creates a little bit more interest without any cost. I know in option 1 before we had a lot more limestone banding, which some people thought looked a little bit too busy, there were too many lines. So a lot of times you've all probably seen projects, commercial or even residential, that get into adding interest just by using the brick, pulling it in and out. So 2A is the summary. So that the main thing of 2A is that the stone goes to the 12-foot mark. That's the main difference, the 12-foot mark. And then in the back, we are proposing as an idea that it could also be a stone look with the masonry piers. Now remember, the original 2 had a much more metallic look. It had the metal piers in the back and it had the metal infill panels. So if there's folks that like this rustic ashlar pattern, this is a scheme that really takes that stone and says, well, let's have the 12-foot datum and let's bring it up all the way up in the back. Now 2B, really the only difference is the front looks almost exactly the same, but in the back, instead of having that stone right at the 12-foot datum, it comes down to the 4-foot datum. So you get more brick, more red brick, and a little bit less of the stone. Now the stone is probably, if it's a real bed depth ashlar stone, it's probably a little bit more expensive than the red brick. So you can judge based on cost, or you can just judge on aesthetics if you like seeing a little bit more brick and less stone. So that's really primarily the difference between 2A and 2B, is just the proportion of red brick versus stone. Everything else is pretty much the same. And then we have one last variation, and that's 1A. Again, very, very similar. We're really just getting down to the details here. And the only difference with this one is the stone-looking base, instead of being in ashlar pattern, where it's a bit more prairie style or rustic, where you see a lot more of the separated stones, this one is more of a little bit more formal limestone-looking rhythm for both the front and the back. And in the back, it's down at that same 4-foot datum that you saw in the previous option. But again, the red brick is the same, this band. Again, there's things you can mix and match. What we thought we'd explore in this one is instead of having stone go all the way up in the staff entry pier bay, we're showing more of the red brick infill. So you still have the vertical piers separating the staff entry and all the window bays of the stair and the break room, but in between, it's more of a red brick as opposed to the previous scheme, which was more of the stone. So that's really what we brought today. So after the great feedback of the open house, we have 3 revised options, 2A, 2B, and 1A. And we would love to open it up for any comments or questions, or likes or dislikes.
Any comments? Any
I like
favorites?
the lighter pillars. Is that what you call them?
Yep, the piers,
Okay.
pillars, yep.
And I also like the stone higher up. But
So you like 2A?
is that what it is?
Yeah,
Yep.
2A is the higher stones.
We,
Okay,
we,
thank you.
I like the stone too, and that's something that we'll have to work on with Frederick Quinn, our construction manager, because there, as Brian mentioned, there's probably an increased cost with that, and so that will be part of, trying to tighten the belt. So I want to do as much stone as we can, but we're going to have to work behind the scenes and see if it is affordable, so.
Do we have any idea that somewhat what that cost is or the difference?
We're in the ballpark. Yeah,
Of
we're in the
total
ballpark
price,
of,
right?
yeah, of being able to afford it, but there's still additional work that we're going to need to do, so.
Is there a difference in that stone and the more limestone of maintenance cost over the long run?
I don't think maintenance cost, I think the material cost is what we're exploring the differences to be. But once it's installed, I mean, you're going to have, I mean, I guess when you think about the life of a 40 or 50-year building, and if there's tuck pointing of masonry, I mean, when you think about the smaller the unit, there might be more tuck pointing in the future, whereas sometimes the bigger, more formal limestone blocks, you have less mortar joints. So maybe long-term, it would be a little bit less maintenance with bigger
Does
pieces.
that also come into the same thought of the pillars being the stonish or lighter color versus steel? Or are those pillars not out of concrete?
So again, as in design development, we're going to get into all the options, are the piers some sort of, they could be even a precast concrete component, it could be cast stone members, it could be the metal panel. So I think we're going to look at all those, but it really gets into like color reaction today. What are the colors and tones that you all like? And then we'll make sure that the color is meeting the budget with the product.
I'm with Jennifer in the sense that I do like 2A. I like the higher base, but again, it depends what the cost is. I mean, that doesn't mean that, I wouldn't be willing to look at any options here and how we can make it all work, but I think it's very aesthetically pleasing, and especially when you've got everyone looking at all four sides. It's not like the back is going to be seen. It's visible.
That's right.
So I think that if we're going to build something, we want to make sure that it makes a statement. And if we're going to do it, I say, I'm not saying go big or go home, but I'm saying make sure that we get what we're looking for and that we're happy with it long term.
Okay.
So
I'm sorry, did you say 2A?
2A.
Like-
Yep.
2A.
Like a 2A.
Again, I'm flexible, but if you're asking me what do I like,
Sure.
that's
Yep.
what I like. That's
what we're
my
looking
favorite.
for. That's what we're looking for tonight.
Dale, what do you got for us?
I'm with you.
I like 2B because I think it's going to be cheaper, but we'll get to
Can you
that.
go to 2B, please?
Just with less stone and maintenance and long, I don't know, maybe
Yeah.
not, but they're both.
Well, we're getting this-
Pleasing to my
yeah.
eye, yes,
Yeah.
2A, 2B are both,
But
I
you're,
like it.
you're along the same kind of line of
Yes.
thinking, I guess.
Right.
depending where it falls in cost-wise
Yep.
and extra.
Yep.
And it's very similar to
Yes. They're both
Correct.
similar,
There may
it's
be
just the
some-
height. Right.
Correct.
reductions. Kim, where are you at with this?
I'm good with 2B, but I also like the other two as well with the dark. So, but I also like number 1. The only one I don't care for that much is 3. I don't
Yeah.
know, but that's only because of the window things.
Yeah, it looks like,
It
yeah.
looks like too much of a jail.
3 with all the dark brick
Yeah,
you were
So-
crazy
I
about?
don't like
Yeah.
3 at
the
all.
darkish one.
No,
yeah.
on the window, whatever those things
Those,
are.
yeah,
Yeah, I don't-
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, those were just louvers to try
Louver.
to,
Yeah.
combat the sun.
But they're all very nice. They really
Right.
are.
Yeah, dude.
I don't.
I don't think we can go wrong with any. I mean,
Yeah.
and other than 3, I'm not a fan of 3, but
Sure.
other than that, I
Okay.
think we're going to have a very nice product, and
Yep.
then it comes down to money.
Money.
You know?
Is the board supportive of us, continuing this process here and, weekly updates, sending out the status of where we're at? I mean, are we on the right track here with this, with
I
that?
think we're on the way track.
Yes,
Yes.
The only thing that I'll say that I like the dark piers.
I do too.
Huh?
They're steel and cheaper.
Pardon me? I like the dark piers
Maintenance-wise.
leaning more towards the, like a metal on them.
Yeah, I
Well,
like the dark ones.
Limestone.
I don't
Yeah,
think we
I'm-
can do half and half, so
I'm fine with
we'll
the
figure it
dark.
out
Doesn't matter.
one way or another.
Well, at least we're on 2.
Correct.
2.
Right.
That's a good
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
Yes.
And
we'll
those,
Tweak it.
there's going to be conversations that we'll have. I just want to remind everyone with FGM and FQC, isn't going to be exactly like this, but I'll make sure the board's updated on our progress and where we're going. But this is good feedback. So.
And thank you guys, did a great job. You did a really phenomenal job with the residents on Thursday. It was great to see your interaction and answering their questions. I know of one person that didn't like it, but everybody else that was there was just absolutely thrilled
Right.
with the process. And, they asked really great questions and everybody was very supportive. So that was good. And you guys did a great job. So at least now we're looking at number 2.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. All right, I will entertain a motion. Pardon me?
And then we have development, because we do have to execute that next stage.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Information about this, the
Drive-through.
drive.
I agree with you. I think I'd like, yeah.
Yeah, we're still,
It's
Director
listed
Mori-
now as an alternate.
Director Morimoto and Chief and we're still going to work on that because
Okay.
there's conversations that we've had internally of, is there access to the park district, to Caver Park? Does that make sense? Do we limit access? So there's further discussion that we're going to have with our team and then also FGM and FQC.
Real simple. We're going to work together and come up with some options too.
Sure.
Yeah.
Develop options. Choose from same materials, stone, brick, different materials we come up with, we'll do options.
Great.
Okay, thank you. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? There are no nays. Thank you.
Appreciate the feedback.
7:07.
Thank you.